when I work with Indigo and Rainbow and Crystal children, basically the structure between the three differences is this. Indigo children were started being born in the 1950 roundabout. Now there were a few that were in the 40s, but the bigger population of them came in the 50s, right through to 1980. Okay, then the Crystal children, okay, started to be born, and they were born right through until the year 2000. Now we've got Rainbow and Blue Star children coming in, bombarding in right now. Now the reason for the difference is basically frequency. It's all about frequency. Now when the atom was split, what happened is it created a different frequency on the planet-wide scale. Okay, and so that basically created humans to change frequency, and especially ones that were being born at that time started to have a different frequency about them. That event, yes, created nuclear power, but that's the negative byproduct of actually splitting the atom. The positive byproduct of the atom being split, it increased the frequency of this planet. Prior to about 1945, the frequency of this planet was varying between about 2 and 5 megahertz per second. And after 1945, really round about sort of 1950 onwards, the planet increased to 8 megahertz per second. Now that megahertz increase is pretty substantial, okay? And so every child that was born at that frequency, in a sense, had a different consciousness to people born prior to that. So between 1950 and 1980, we've seen a lot of change. And believe me, in that concentrated 30-year period, there's been more change in 30 years than had been in 30,000, actually, to be realistic. Now, in around between 1980 and 1982, some major shifts happened, and basically they were more focused on the solar system and the universe than actually the planet, because planet Earth, as it changed frequency, it doesn't just change this planet, everything is connected. So from 1950 to 1980, that frequency change repelled into the atmosphere, into the universe, into the solar winds, into the planet-wide grid, and wherever the universe ends, where it goes to, you know. We only know some of it, but it's pretty expansive. And so in 1980, basically what happened is the solar winds started to increase in speed just in our solar system. And so basically from 1980 to 2000, that solar winds continued to increase and the planet speed has continued to increase. Now, I would say between about 1982 and 1985, the polar ice cap started to shift as well. So all of a sudden we've got frequency increase in the centre of the planet, consciousness shift in humanity, and we've got a polar shift happening. Okay, now generally when a polar shift happens, usually in the past, it turns to 100 years of ice age and we all pretty much, disappear off the planet, unless the really tough ones stay. But humanity would always live, but the really tough ones were the only ones that would live. But because humanity's consciousness is shifting at the same time as the winds, the planet itself, this polar shift has been gradual instead of quick. And so what started happening from 2000 till now, the tidal shifts on the planet itself started to happen. So in a sense, the sea level started to change. And like what we've been having, especially in the last 2 years, is the highest tides ever, okay? Now, that's all part of frequency. So 8 megahertz from basically up until 1980, okay? Then now, from 1980 to 2000, we were looking at a variation between 9 megahertz and about 12 to 14, depending on what area of the planet. Some areas of the planet are frequencies higher than others. This is not science, okay? This is metaphysical science, and it's very different. Physical science on this planet does numbers, and all the stuff around the place. It has to have an analytic end, in a sense, where meta is the mystical part of oneself. So it's an expansive science that pretty much doesn't end. And this is where metaphysical sciences are now coming to the forefront. Now the frequency now varies from 14 megahertz to 18. Now there are some vibrational places on the planet where it's still at 8. But humanity, this is where the main problems come in with us, okay? All of us are at different vibrations. So for example, if your vibration is at 8 still, because you haven't shifted enough consciousness to shift vibration, your children are born at 15, okay? They cannot be at your 8. So what they do is they want to be, because they want to become you, okay? Because that's what our children do, they become us. But it's become impossible for them to do that. So what happens with them these days is they become erratic. Drug increases on the rise, suicides on the rise, all these things are on the rise because the children are busily trying to become us, like we did, and everyone has done for centuries. But they cannot anymore. So what has to happen is we actually have to become them. See, everyone in this room, all of you guys in this room are at different frequencies, and how you can diagnose that you're at a different frequency to someone else, there's one way, okay? When you can't hear what someone's saying, it's because the frequency of this part of your being is different to the other person. The children are a bit different because what they do is they try to listen to you using your frequency, so therefore all the time are trying to adjust to you. There's one way to shift your frequency. There's only really one way. That is to stand your ground and speak your truth. Now, that's not so simple, guys, okay? Because most of you don't know who you are, so you actually don't know what your truth is. And often there's lots of deception around all of us, okay? So it's very hard work to lift your frequency. But as the year 2000 comes in, the planet is going to... 2012? 2012. The planet's going to adjust and settle right down and go back to more normality itself, in a sense, but it's going to stay at a very high frequency. And the frequency, I'm not sure exactly what the frequency it's going to adjust to, but I do know that we're looking at well over 70 to 18 megahertz per second. Now, the frequency of 14 to 17 megahertz is the thought frequency. Okay, so you think about this. That's the thought frequency. So this planet's now moved to the thought frequency. So young people like this young guy over here can read your guys' minds. So crystal children basically get bombarded by our negative thought, and also verbal gossip is obviously not very good either. But negative thought is more damaging than verbal gossip to crystal children. Those group of people are quite damaged on our planet. If you have a confrontation with your teenagers, anyone up to 30 years of age inside your home environment, first thing you need to do is change the way you think. And you need clarity to do that. You need to start noticing how you're thinking. As soon as there's a consciousness shift, they will pick up on it and then react to it. Now that's crystal children. Now rainbow and blue star children, they're even more intense. Now anyone who's blessed to have a child that's 10 and under, believe me, it can be a curse. From 2000 till now, blue star and rainbows have been coming in now. There's two types of children coming in. And so it's even harder because there's not just one type of frequency coming in with children, there's actually two. Blue star children don't have a third eye. Now that point is an access point. That means they can access other conscious levels, okay? So they can read you, okay? Little children, they see imaginary things because they're not imaginary, they're looking into another dimensional realm because they have a star here that has access to different realms in the universe. Say for example, a little blue star children's born into a drug-infested environment where they harm children, okay? They're protected because what happens is one of the other universal levels will activate and they will start living there instead of here. Even though they might be physically abused here, they're not actually consciously being harmed. Believe you me, the child will take cause and effect on those adults when the child feels like it, because that's not a child. That is probably an ancient soul, okay? And just a little child's being. But the ancient soul now has a lot more power than we did when we were in little children's, because they have universal star on their forehead, not just the third eye. So their ability to defend themselves is extensive. Now rainbow children, they work a little bit different to the blue stars. They're all colour, okay? So basically they have the ability to access all the power points in their body. Now you have to understand, guys, most of your children control you, okay? They use you the whole time, okay? As soon as they realise they can, and boy, they realise at a young age with these new ones, you are cannon fodder, okay? That you basically become their victims. Believe me, I'm not joking. Your children will torture each of you if you do not learn to take responsibility, become self-aware, okay, and listen to what they say. How you develop is you remove fear, okay? That's all you do, you remove fear. And stand your ground, be truthful, trust yourself. And that's hard work, guys, I'm sorry. When it moves into next year, believe you me, things are going to get a lot worse for humanity if we don't shift. The largest growing disease on the planet in this frequency is mental illness, because you see, if you can't adjust to the frequency, your mind gets more and more erratic, and that's why children are being born more and more with autism, children more and more are developing ADHD because all they're doing is reflecting the erratic environment they're in. So they know there's a lot more to what's going on than what we see. So we need to start learning about them. That's probably pretty much it. I think we're probably over our time.
Thank you.